everyone, and welcome to another brand new episode review of the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!
That's right. We are doing another Mandalorian spoiler review here. Spoiler review of the latest episode, The Jedi, Chapter 13. Mike is coming to us live from the planet of Corvu about the new magistrate that's happening here. No, there's so much we're going to get into today. Thank you so much for joining us. This was an episode that just connected to so many things and revealed so many things. We're going to get into all of that and talk about what it might mean for the future, as well as what we saw in the episode. I am one of your hosts. I am the outlaw John Rocha, joined as always by this man over there to my left.
I am Michael Vogel. Happy to be back, coming to you from the mountains, and so excited that I had to just talk about this episode no matter where I was.
That's right. And joining us again this week, a very special guest sitting in for our fellow geek buddy, Shannon McClung. We're going to thank Laura Kelly. How are you, Laura?
Woo! Woo!
I'm fantastic. I am so excited to talk about this episode. I'm coming to you from my normal location in Chicago. So, yeah.
In the middle of a Christmas movie marathon, so we appreciate you taking the time to come and hang out with us today. But we do want to start, before we start into this episode, we do want to say, with our fellow Geek Buddies' permission, Shannon McClung, Mike, what did he ask us to say?
Well, Shannon wanted to let us know. As you guys know, he's been absent the past few weeks on the main show and on our Mandalorian reviews. We said he was dealing with some personal stuff, and we wanted to let everybody know, his father recently and unexpectedly passed away, so he's been back home dealing with that and, kind of just spending time with his family, but he wanted to let his Geek Buddies family know that that's where he was, and, so wants to let everybody know he's excited to come back once he's ready, we all send him our well wishes. We obviously love him very much. We know that a lot of you guys from watching the reviews and the show love him very much too. So we're all sending Shannon and his entire family our wishes and our thoughts at this really hard time.
Absolutely. And if you follow him on social media, please send him a message of encouragement and support. I've been through this process in 2008. It is not easy. So you never know when someone's words come in at a certain time that kind of picks up your spirit. So don't be shy about sending him some love and sending him some support during this difficult time. All right, let's get into this here. Let's get into this spoiler filled. Once again, last warning, spoiler filled. There's a lot we're going to talk about here as we get into it. So
it doesn't get more spoiler filled than Chapter 13.
It really doesn't. We tried to do a non-spoiler review on SEN Live. It was literally 30 seconds long. There's just not much you can talk about that isn't. So let's get into this thing. Just a quick synopsis or a quick plot synopsis here. We've got Din Djarin. He is heading off to the planet of Corvu, specifically to the city of Caldano. He is trying to find Ahsoka Tano, being sent there by Bo-Katan. He has the child in tow. And the episode, we get Ahsoka Tano here starting off. And we have got a magistrate who ends up hiring Mandalorian to go after Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka Tano and Mandalorian band together to go and depose the magistrate for being in charge of that town and her right-hand man, played by Michael Biehn. And then we get these reveals of Yoda's actual name, Baby Yoda's actual name. We get this reveal of who Ahsoka Tano is going after. So much gets talked about. So let's first get your thoughts about the overall quality of the show. Laura, what's your feelings about this particular episode?
I was really excited. I had I guess in terms of the amount of Ahsoka Tano content that we were going to get, I had very low expectations. I fully was going into it expecting it to be more of a Boba Fett situation that we had at the beginning of this season. I did not expect that we were going to get her throughout the entire episode. I thought it was going to be more of a tease. So in the end, it sort of was, I guess, kind of a tease for what I think of is maybe going to be probably a spinoff series. But this was really exciting for me. We've known for a while that Ahsoka Tano was coming. I'm a huge Ahsoka Tano fan. So this was, it's hard to describe. I was trying to think of it earlier today of is it like watching TV in black and white and then all of a sudden having color, the jump from animation to live action? I don't know what to compare it to because it's just mind blowing when it happens. And I was just so happy to see it. So I enjoyed the episode overall, mostly just for Ahsoka's presence.
Yeah, this was essentially Ahsoka's episode with guest starring the Mandalorian. Michael, overall, how did you feel about this episode?
Well, disagreeing with you just slightly on that last comment, a couple things. One, well, it's definitely the Ahsoka Tano episode. I woke up this morning and I felt like it was like nerd Christmas. Like my first thought when I opened my eyes was today's the day. Like I wouldn't get on Twitter. I wasn't checking anything until I watched it because I just was like, I got to do it. And kind of to Laura's point, you know, the episode opens and we just dive right in. Like she's there. We're just in it. You see those two white lightsabers and you're like, shit, it's here. It's happening. But what I think was amazing and I think was really good, and we'll touch on it a little bit later as well, is despite the fact that this is 100% the Ahsoka Tano show and we got way more Ahsoka Tano than I even hoped and dreamed we would get, it also, the emotional core of this episode is grounded in the relationship between Mando and Baby Yoda.
Sure.
And this kind of is a huge turning point for Mandalorian because everything up to this point was protecting the child. Where do I take the child? Where do I go? And it was all built around get them to the Jedi. That was the end of season 1. That happened. And we've now got a bunch more information and a different direction and kind of a different relationship between Mando and Baby Yoda. So even though this gave me everything I could have possibly wanted in Ahsoka Tano, and Rosario Dawson absolutely killed it, it really was still a really great Mando and Grogu episode, if you will. So that's my overall thoughts. I mean, honestly, I think probably one of the best episodes of Mandalorian, period, and maybe one of the best hours of Star Wars that's out there in existence. Like, it was just so good.
This is the best episode of The Mandalorian yet, in my opinion. This is maybe top 5 any kind of Star Wars episode of anything animated or live action ever. It even rivals some of the movies, in my opinion, overall as a show or a piece of media. It was incredible. And there were so many things here that you can tell that were Star Wars related, but also went back to the foundations of Star Wars, which is this Japanese influence, this Kurosawa influence, which is, Hidden Fortress is essentially what George was using as a foundation for the C-3PO R2-D2 relationship with the princess. So much of the opening of Ahsoka Tano, her coming out of the fog, is very reminiscent of Throne of Blood, his version of Macbeth, and that the confrontation on the it's very similar to Gunslingers, but also very similar to Yojimbo when he faces Tatsuyata Nakadai in Yojimbo. So there was a lot, plus the architecture, the Japanese gardens, and the music. It all just gave you a very Japanese centric episode, which I thoroughly loved. Plus, Dave Filoni. My God, it's so correlative to Bryce Dallas Howard's episode. It's leaps and bounds better than his episode from last season, Gunslinger. Just the visuals. And Christian Harloff said this to me, texted this morning, and made so much sense to me. It's like an episode of Clone Wars come to life, Laura.
100%.
I mean, just the shot of Ahsoka Tano and Yoda, Baby Yoda, or Grogu talking with the moonlight behind them. I mean, what a shot, Laura. As such a fan of Clone Wars as you are, did it feel like that to you?
It did. It very much felt like that. And it was so exciting. The amount of, the sort of martial arts and the visual effects with the sabers, all of the feats that they were able to pull off in this episode. I mean, you can really tell they've upped the budget. They've got different, they've got more people working on the visual effects of this season. And they're just knocking it out of the park. I totally agree with your point on the Bryce Dallas Howard episode was so much better this season, I think, than last season. And then, this Dave Filoni episode was really something for me. I just felt like I felt like I came home or something.
Oh,
It just felt so good to see
coming home really is accurate. I've loved Mandalorian. We talk about all the Star Wars Easter eggs. We talk about the ties to this and that. I mean, that's kind of what we do every week. And this just felt like a piece of Star Wars kind of fell back into place in a way that I didn't know I was missing. If that's the best way. I also think, I think what they're really doing well here, and this is a hard thing to do, is this episode was packed so full of information that if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan, there's just a ton to dive into, which we are about to do. But if you're a casual Star Wars fan, if you've never watched Clone Wars or Rebels, if all you've watched is Mandalorian, the information is there. Like, they've managed to do something that is it is equally full of geekness and accessible to the non-geek at the same time, which I think is really, because I have friends who are not the biggest Star Wars fans, and they're loving Mandalorian, and they ask me, oh, who is this? But it's like, it doesn't detract from their viewing, which I think is a really, it's a hard thing to do, and they're doing it really well.
Yeah, you make an excellent point, Mike. Walking that high wire between, making sure you cater to the casual Star Wars fans and the hardcore Star Wars fans without affecting the overall effect of the show is not an easy thing to do. And I think I think Filoni absolutely knocked it out of the park. Let's deal with it. This is Ahsoka Tano. She is live action. Rosario Dawson is playing her. I thoroughly loved the look. I loved her approach. This is an older Ahsoka than we've seen in animated series past. So some of her movement was different. Some of her movement was slightly slower. Her look is more Clone Wars-ish than Rebels-ish. So overall, how was your feeling about Ahsoka Tano? Yeah, Mike, let's go to Laura, you're
let's
the biggest
Laura.
Yeah, Laura, you tell us, what was your overall feeling and vibe about seeing finally Ahsoka Tano come to live action and Rosario Dawson's portrayal of her?
I'm excited to address this because I think that was a little bit of what I've been seeing in some of the reception today, is that some people having a sort of problem with the little bit of the look and the movement and the fighting style, which that's fair, I guess, if you want to be nitpicky. Yeah. I've been preparing myself for this for a really long time. The fact that we're going to be getting a live action version of an animated character, she's not going to look the same. She's not going to sound the same. We knew that for certain. And the fighting style, the fact that she's now, Ahsoka would now be 46 years old in this timeline. She's not a 17-year-old girl that we left in the Clone Wars. There's been a lot that's changed. And, we even saw a little bit, a departure from her fighting style in Rebels. So that just the animation style was a little bit different. So we've, the people who've been sort of following her through the canon have maybe been training for this a little bit. Yeah. But overall, I was a huge fan. I really liked the look. The only thing that got me a little bit were the eyes. There was Ahsoka has these big blue eyes, and you just without doing some sort of motion capture things on Rosario Dawson's face maybe they did. I couldn't tell if the face shape they maybe modified a little bit or if it was just makeup. Either way, I thought it looked great. I was fully on board with it. I thought they did a killer job. The new outfit was great. The lightsabers looked amazing.
Oh yeah. Mike?
Yeah, I agree. Look, I liken this to when we have a comic book character we love and then we see them in live action. It's never going to be a one-to-one. The way Ahsoka Tano fights in Clone Wars and Rebels is largely due to the benefits of what you can do in animation when you are just going for it and being crazy, and no amount of special effects. I'm much happier with what they chose to do than trying to do some kind of motion capture. We're going to have her spinning around doing I just think that this was much more grounded and real. And there's 1,000 little ways, whether it be the voice or the eyes or anything, like Laura's saying, where it's not quite exact, but the spirit of who Ahsoka Tano is, what she's about, the vibe that she has, the gentleness she had both with Grogu and with the way that she dealt with Mando, it was Ahsoka. I think that that's the more important. I'm much happier with someone who acts the part and doesn't look exactly the same than someone who looks exactly the same but underneath it's not there. And I think that this is the Ahsoka Tano. If this is the Ahsoka Tano that we're going to see in live action, and it seems like we're going to see her for that there's a lot more to come with her, I'm super on board and happy with it.
I agree with that. I think that you're seeing a character progress and mature as a as a person, and you're not going to get that young, more exuberant thing. She's becoming a master in her own way. She's more quiet. She's more reserved. She's more calm in situations. So naturally, I loved that they gave her moments of silence, moments of communication with a Grogu that didn't speak. They were still acting. She was still acting up a storm while she wasn't speaking. And there was such a sense of calm and peaceness to her as she becomes more self-possessed as a human being. She is not going to be as exuberant or excitable as she was as younger. That happens to everybody, I think, as they get older. So I loved that they gave her that weight, that kind of gravitas, so to speak, as a character. And she really owned it, Rosario did. And, it's not easy to take such an iconic character and bring it to life with all the pressure and the expectations. And I thought she knocked it out of the park. The only thing about the look that I might have had a weird issue with is some of the wrinkles or the crests it looked like foam type stuff that bothered me. That bothered me a little bit, but it wasn't enough to take away from anything that I was enjoying about her character, the portrayal. All of it looked very natural to me. And the fight scene with her and Mando, as quick as it was awesome. and further promoted the idea that there's something even stronger possibly than a Jedi sword. That's the Beskar armor, and we saw that twice in this show. So I was excited to see that as well as a new wrinkle in the Star Wars mythology.
Yeah. I mean, like the Beskar armor and it's been established that most of the Mandalorian's weapons, the Beskar armor, everything originally kind of dated back to this is what you need to battle a Jedi, and I think we saw a little bit of that today, and I thought it was really, really cool.
Well, let's go step by step. We get this meeting with Ahsoka Tano threatens Morgan Elsbeth, who is being played. This is quickly. I'll give you a little information. Being played by Diana Lee Inosanto. She is the goddaughter of Bruce Lee. She is the daughter of Dan Inosanto, who is a Filipino-American martial arts icon and Bruce Lee's protege and training partner. And just to show you the wheels within wheels of this show, Diana Lee Inosanto came to prominence and note as an actress when she was doing some stunt work for Barbed Wire, the movie with Pamela Anderson. And because she was so well during some of the training on the side, they cast her in the film to fight who? Tamura Morrison in the movie, who of course plays Boba Fett. And so there's wheels within wheels of this thing that are just, it all comes back to this. But again, more Japanese influence. There's an Asian influence here with Bruce Lee in China and the martial arts throughout the Filipino influence. So all of it was really great. But anyway, a lot of people are speculating that Morgan Elsbeth might be part of Chirrut Imwe's order. Who do you guys think she was? Who are you guys speculating? Because the use of the staff and the way she carried herself.
There definitely was a vibe to that.
Okay.
Like, definitely, I thought the same thing. I thought of him right away. I kind of thought of the way he moved in Rogue One. What's established later on when Ahsoka explains it to Mando is she was someone whose people were sort of ravaged during the Clone Wars that drove her in her rage to work with the Empire. So it sounds like she was probably on the she was attacked by the Separatists at some point in the Clone Wars, and that made her hate for them, made her, when the Republic turned into the Empire, she joined them and built things for the Navy, built ships for their Navy. So it doesn't seem, despite the fact that there was definitely that similarity in the movement, and she definitely had that samurai kind of style, the backstory they gave her was less spiritual and more, she helped the Empire get slave labor and ravage planets to build the Navy, which kind of ties into the big reveal of who her master is later on. Right. So I think that's the information we have, but I definitely did see the Chirrut sort of similarities.
Yeah. What are your feelings on that, Laura? Did you see that as well?
I didn't pick up on it much because I was way too focused on the Thrawn connection. I couldn't stop thinking about, like, well, where did they meet along the line? And are we maybe going to see this person in Chaos Rising or in the next Thrawn book that's coming out in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy? Has she been mentioned before? And I've just missed it because it was a quick little tidbit somewhere. But that was the connection I was much more focused on. I really didn't give much thought to it. But I do like the idea that maybe there is some connection to Chirrut there. I wonder maybe if she the interpretation I got was that maybe she came from like a sort of like different class than him. If he was more of a monk, it seems like she was more of like kind of the more in the business class, more of the aristocracy of whatever planet they came from. And it sounds like but also kind of sounds like maybe she worked her way up kind of through the Empire, and who knows if that was like social connections. But yeah, I'm just like, give me a little backstory on this woman. I would love to know where the connection to Thrawn came into play, and how did she become his master? Is an interesting term to me. That they chose that of all the words, not boss, not some overlord or something, but master it was an interesting choice.
Yeah, that's a good call. I do, and I Oh no, I was
saying real quickly, in the world of Star Wars, it's connected, right? Master because Jedi, Master Sith, Master Samurai. Like, what is this connection? It's a great point. What does this tell us about Thrawn? What else is he even doing? Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I also just loved like the reference to the Clone Wars. I just love the little ways that they're sort of tying these characters into both the past, the present, and the future. Like we said last week. I mean, just the fact that her backstory dates back to what happened in the Clone Wars, just like with Grogu's backstory, which we find out, which we know kind of ties back to Revenge of the Sith. So I think they're doing a great job of sort of grounding these people in times, places, and dates that we understand that helps them come, even in the little bit of information they give us, it helps them come a little bit more to life.
Yeah. So let's just dive into this. We Ahsoka Tano eventually after the Mandalorian Din Djarin tries to go after her, they have this conversation. He says Bo-Katan sent her. Then we have these moments with Baby Yoda. We find out his name is Grogu, and we find out that he was trained at a Jedi temple in Coruscant by many masters, then was hidden away after the end of the Clone Wars, and has developed a fear of using his powers and has been hiding them in order to survive all this time. So that was just so much to take in about the history of what you can default think about is a baby Yoda. But remember, it's been around for 50 years. So what's this training about Jedi Master? So overall, Mike, let's get what was your reaction to the name and having all this history now installed into Grogu?
Well, first of all, the way they sort of revealed the name was just so cute. Like Ahsoka just casually like, oh yeah, Grogu, and he's like, what? So I'm already like, I'm like, great, you're my little baby Grogu. I love you forever. So much information, and like I was saying, Mandalorian from the very first episode was built around. Why is there a little Yoda? Who is he? What's the mystery behind him? What's going on? And we just got between last week's sort of reveal of why the Empire or the remnants of the Empire was using him, and now this. I was actually really surprised to find out that he was in the Jedi Temple, like when the Jedi Temple fell, that he was actually already there. Like he was a foundling who had been brought to the Jedi Temple. He was training, and contextually, what this means is that when Anakin Skywalker went on his children killing spree, it means somebody or somehow this foundling was protected. So when all the other young Jedi were killed in the temple, somewhere there's a piece of this story missing that will be revealed eventually. Somebody took him away, hid him away for a long time, and then another piece of this mystery, somehow he ended up kind of in these kind of criminals' hands and was about to be sold off to the Empire. So there's still more story there to reveal, but we did get a huge chunk of that. And I think, like, again, tying it back to the events of Revenge of the Sith, the fact that he was tied to the Jedi Temple, something that Ahsoka Tano is very familiar with, was great. And also, as I was saying last week in our review, finally got somebody to be like, yeah, I've seen one other guy that looks like him. It's Master Yoda. Sad for Yaddle from Phantom Menace, who's getting no mentions here. R.I.P. Yaddle. Apparently Yaddle was long gone by the time Ahsoka came around, but we finally got that Yoda connection, which was really, really cool. And I think that it was great. What did you guys think?
Yeah, what do you think, Laura?
I really enjoyed that the fact that we don't have to, hopefully not have to call him the child anymore. I know that Disney's been really insistent on not calling him Baby Yoda and I'm like, we got to get through this. So I fully accept Grogu, and I will switch over to that. But I thought that it was a great scene between them. I do want to know more. I wonder sometimes if we're going to be getting a Mandalorian novel sometime next year. Right. And I wonder if maybe they'll cover this component because, we do have these two main characters. We have Din Djarin and we have Grogu. And it would be nice if this story, this book that's coming out covers both. But all we got from Ahsoka Tano was that someone took him from the temple and then his memory becomes dark. Right. We know a couple of Jedi who survived Order 66, Kanan Jarrus for one. But we kind of, from comics, we know where Kanan Jarrus' story goes.
He wasn't anywhere.
Order 66.
Mm-hmm. We know that Kanan wasn't anywhere near the Jedi Temple when he went down.
Right.
Yes, yeah. But we don't know exactly who all survived. I think there was a hint at one point that now I'm blanking on the name, but we know a couple of other Jedi who survived, and I wonder if maybe there's going to be some connection where they're going to bring in some of them to the story so we can get some clues. Or
it wasn't a Jedi.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There's a lot of possibilities there.
I liked it too, but listen, once again, I'm in this place where I think there's more darkness to Grogu than people are. I think people are getting caught up with the cuteness of him, but this idea that she says then his memories go dark and he's afraid and he's alone. It lends itself more. And remember, Ahsoka makes a great reference to Anakin. Because when she says she doesn't want to train him because his connection to Din Djarin, he's got emotions. So in those emotions, there could be fear and anger, and that could come out. And she doesn't want to train him. And I've seen what that can do to a Jedi Knight, even the best of us.
Even the best of them.
Oh, man, that was just awesome.
Heartbreaking.
To see that. Yeah. And so you're like, okay, we lay that groundwork for that, but she doesn't want to train him, right? This is very reminiscent. Remember, Yoda rejected Anakin. Remember, Yoda saying, no, Anakin, you shouldn't train him, blah, blah, blah. So I wonder if there's little small references, him choking Cara Dune last season, all this stuff I just find in my mind, I'm starting to see that there's the possibility of some darkness in Grogu more and more week to week, and I like it. I like to throw that in. Doesn't mean they'll go that path, but I like that they're throwing.
Yeah, like he's gonna be a power hungry despot who just destroys planets for blue macarons. Like it'll be great.
Hey, it happens. It happens. What did you guys think?
But no, I do think okay. But just on that point, I mean, I do think you make a good point, and they're clearly kind of drawing that parallel. I mean, Phantom Menace is all about a young and powerful Jedi who is coming to the Jedi Temple a little late, and they're like, he's got too much anger in him, and we're just in the exact same spot here. So totally different context, feels new and fresh, feels different, but with definite shadows of where we've been before. It's like echoes upon echoes, and I thought they did it really well without hitting you over the head with it.
Yeah, yeah. Did you like the training sequence, the stone, and all of that? I love that moment, the communication there. I love that they can communicate with just their thoughts, and then what we get afterwards. Mando, her saying she refuses to train him, and then talking about everything that happened with Morgan Elsbeth. So we get a little more of that. So then we move on to them saying they're going to band together and go after Morgan Elsbeth. And we haven't even mentioned Michael Biehn playing Lang. For those of us who grew up in the 80s, Michael Biehn has a special reverence for a number of reasons. And it's very Western-esque, the part he's playing. And don't forget, for those of you who may remember from the 90s on CBS, he was the lead of that Magnificent Seven series. So the cowboy thing is very much in his blood. And, of course, Tombstone as well. So did we like Michael Biehn? Did we like Lang? He had a little bit of the Michael Rooker voice going on a little. What did you guys think about this character?
He gave me a lot of Tobias Beckett vibes. I was getting a lot of it reminded me so much of Solo, which was interesting because then, of course, that's how it goes down in the end with Michael Biehn. But I enjoyed the character. It was one of those things where I didn't recognize him for many of the things. I haven't seen any of the things I think that he's more well known for. But it was one of those things where Star Wars or Mandalorian likes to bring in these actors that people know and just put them in the forefront. And my immediate thing is, I'm supposed to be excited about this and know who this is. And I don't. But that's fine. I'm glad that other people are happy about it.
Oh, my God. What's with the petty shots, Laura?
Terminator, Aliens, Abyss, Mandalorian. I'm good with it. I was happy. It was good to see him.
You hang around long enough, you might end up in a Star Wars show. You just never know if you hang around long enough. But no, this leads us. Oh, sorry, Mikey. What did you think about having Lang in there, Michael Biehn in there?
No, I liked that. I liked him a lot there, but just kind of tying back to what you were saying before about the training sequence, I also thought like one of the greatest parts about this, and again, this is where I felt like this was just a great Mandalorian episode itself, was the way that Ahsoka, as amazing and awesome and Jedi powerful as she is, that she recognized that only Mando was going to get him to do it. That they just sort of underscored, and even just like Mando's nervousness when he's pacing, when Ahsoka and Grogu are like kind of communing with each other, Mando's sort of like, well, no, he can do it. I've seen him do it. He's really powerful. Like he was totally like the nervous, proud dad.
Yeah.
More so in this episode than we've seen in the past. I'm going to keep moving my table because the sun is moving since I'm outside.
Okay. All right.
And my ring light is not here, so we're just going to keep doing this.
God's natural.
It's great, guys. This is what happens. This is what happens when you're in God's country. No, but I mean, I think that more so than in other episodes where we sort of get those hints, like we know that Mando's sort of that gruff guy who really loved the little fella, but he really doubled down on the emotions that he was feeling for him and the connection. And I think that really made this episode strong in a way that I wasn't expecting. I mean, I was hoping Ahsoka was going to be great, but I thought that was really great too. So I just wanted to get that in there. But
yeah, so they make a deal that she will train Grogu if Mando helps her. Once again, Mando being recruited into a battle, episode per episode, into this battle to take over this city and depose Morgan Elsbeth. They end up going in. She ends up kicking some ass. Mando comes in from the side, and then she has this confrontation, Ahsoka Tano does, with Morgan Elsbeth there inside her little walled-off garden area. And this is just a phenomenal fight. Laura, what did you think about the Beskar army here, her two lightsabers, and then hearing Lang and the Mandalorian having their own conversations outside of this thing? How did you feel about this entire sequence?
I really enjoyed Ahsoka and Din Djarin sort of pulling a fast one on them of her throwing the pauldron down on the ground. I thought that was fun. We get a little glimpse of a Lothcat while they're sort of running around through the city and through the alleys. But this scene in the garden I thought was really cool, and I feel like I saw a couple people talking about the sort of fighting style and not liking it. But I'm like, I've got two women on the screen that are so badass. Like, look at what's happening. I'm like, I'm just ecstatic. Yeah. And so I really enjoyed it. I loved the twist at the end of, because I was questioning the whole time. We've got Ahsoka fighting sabers forward. And we're not seeing a ton of the backhand grip that she's sort of traditionally known for in both Rebels and Clone Wars. But then we see at the very end her sort of turn the tables. And now we've all of a sudden, Morgan is not prepared to fight against this sort of style of fighting, and that ends up being her downfall. And I loved watching that entire sequence play out and bringing back in the backhand grip for Ahsoka. It was just another one of those components of like, oh, I am home. I am back home with this episode. Thank you, Dave Filoni, for welcoming me back.
I think, Mike, I think another thing that they've done in Star Wars that I think it's done in part to kind of justify the fact that Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Clone Wars is an amazing lightsaber fighter, and then we get to New Hope, and him and Darth Vader kind of have a more basic lightsaber fight. Let's just say more basic. But like, it was reminiscent as I watched Ahsoka have a kind of a, I would say, calmer, more thoughtful fighting style, perhaps. It really called back to Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul in Rebels to me.
Great reference.
Where you had this battle where, Darth Maul's coming at him with the heat and Obi-Wan is just like boom, bop, boop. And this idea that as these Jedi get older, as they become a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit more tied to the Force, they realize that all of that energy they were expending when they were younger isn't necessarily necessary. Yeah. And I think that as I watched the way they did it with Ahsoka, whether that is because you can't really do all the things that Ahsoka can do in animation, or they were trying to be like, look, she is a little, Johnny, to your point, older. She's been through some stuff. She's grown as a fighter, and in growing as a fighter, she realizes she doesn't have to expend as much energy. She can just flow with the Force. So I thought it was great. I totally agree. Like, two awesome badass women fighting, and it was just super cool. The entire sequence was so well done. I mean, just seeing a Jedi and a Mandalorian fight together like that in live action on the big screen or the small screen was just so thrilling. And what I love about Mandalorian is we know what's going to happen each week. He's going to go somewhere. There's going to be somebody. They're going to be like, I'll give you what you want, but you got to help me first. Like, that is the setup of the show. But within that simplicity, they're able to give us so much character and so much fun and so much action and so much choreography. So it was just thrilling. The entire thing was thrilling.
Yeah, that scene was a perfect marriage of the Western influence and the Eastern influence of Star Wars. And it was right there. I mean, Lang and Din Djarin are essentially two gunfighters. And he's like, hey, I don't know who's going to win. Oh, it sounds like you won. Let me lay down my... that kind of thing. It's basically an old school gunfight. And then having an awesome, essentially, samurai fight in the garden there was incredible as a balance for me personally. One thing I want to mention, Laura, you mentioned two women fighting. For me personally, as a Latino, earlier in the episode, having a woman like Rosario Dawson, who is of Cuban and Puerto Rican ancestry, talking with Pedro Pascal, who is of Chilean ancestry, about Grogu, that is a moment of representation for Latinos for me that I had to stop the episode for a few seconds because I got emotional, because I'm like, finally, we get to be part of this thing in such effective ways, in such powerful ways, in such main ways. So it was great to see for that as well. So totally take your point about two women here being badass on the screen, live action in a Star Wars show. Totally enjoyed all of this. And then we get the reveal, obviously after Lang gets shot by the Mandalorian, we get the reveal that the master is Thrawn. So you mentioned it a little bit, Laura, but we got to talk about this. Where are we going now? Is this mean Thrawn is higher than Gideon? Is this a future villain for season 3, or possibly hinted at the end? Or is this a spin-off thing? What do you two think is going to happen here?
Oh, I'd be willing to bet that this will be the last time we see Ahsoka in this show. I hate to say that. I don't think we're going to see her this season. And I would be surprised if we see her in a subsequent season. I think that this was definitely supposed to be a sort of warm-up for what will inevitably be a Star Wars Rebels spin-off, which I had thought was going to be an animated series from all the rumors that we've heard, but maybe there's another live-action series in the works. I really am not sure what to think, because I think this Ahsoka Tano, Sabine Wren story where they're off searching for Ezra is a really interesting story thread to pursue, and it's one that Dave Filoni is not letting anybody else handle. It's something that he wants to take personal control of, which is totally understandable, and something that I'm all for. So I'll be excited to see where they go with it, but I do have a feeling that I don't think we're going to see any more of her this season. I think this may have been a one and done.
All right, Mikey?
I think we haven't seen the last of Ahsoka Tano in Mandalorian, whether it's this season or next season. I think she has more of a part to play, but I also do agree that she's getting a warm up for probably her own spin-off, her own series. And I do think that, especially after seeing the success that Mandalorian has had, and I'm sure Disney executives are looking at Twitter and social media today and being like, fuck, they were right. Fans really like this chick. Ahsoka Tano's here to stay, and she'll probably get her own spin-off series. Grand Admiral Thrawn actually raises a bunch of questions. There's a bunch that we sort of don't know in what we now know. For those that are not aware, in Star Wars Rebels, Grand Admiral Thrawn, Grand Admiral of the Imperial Navy, super badass, not a Jedi, not a Sith, not force powerful, but brilliant strategic guy, can best anybody, thinks 10 steps ahead of everyone. When last we saw him was carried off by a Purville, which is a space whale that can use the Force to travel hyperspace lanes. It's a lot of information. Don't worry about it. It gets crazy. Star Wars is weird. Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra Bridger, who was the young Jedi of Rebels, was taken away by the space whale. And at the very end of Rebels, we see, as Laura said, Ahsoka and Sabine Wren going off to find Ezra. Yeah. So that was about, I wrote it down, the timeline. The end of Rebels is the Battle of Endor, which is about 5 ABY after the Battle of Yavin from New Hope. And we are now in sort of 9 ABY, about 4 or 5 years later. So the question is, did Ahsoka and Sabine find Ezra and Thrawn at that time? And Ezra is somewhere that we don't know yet, and Thrawn is back, which is why the magistrate would be like, that's my master. Is this part of her trying to find Ezra, and in finding Thrawn, she's going to find Ezra? So, we don't know where Ahsoka and Sabine are on this journey of, are we going to find out what happened later that leads to this, or is this the road that they're going to? Is Baby Yoda, is Grogu going to go to this Jedi temple next week and call out to a Jedi, and Ezra Bridger shows up at the end of the season? There's a bunch of questions out there now that the reveal of Thrawn and the fact that that he is someone's master raises a lot of questions from where we last saw him at the end of Rebels.
The timeline's going to be interesting to figure out where they are in this journey or where they've been, or didn't Rebels jump at the end furistic to them going after Ezra?
The epilogue. Yeah,
right?
the epilogue was Battle of Endor. Yeah,
because Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra disappear before New Hope, basically. They disappear before the rebellion gets started, but then we jump forward at the very end of Rebels to the Battle of Endor, which is 5 years later, and where we see we see Sabine and Ahsoka taking off to go look for Ezra.
Right. Yeah. Oh, well, you mentioned something about the let's finish off a little bit here. Yeah. Both sides end up winning. Both Ahsoka Tano and Din Djarin handle their business. And then Ahsoka comes over and says that she is not going to train Mando. She kind of goes back on that. So that really kind of upsets a little bit the Mandalorian. And then she says, well, there's another suggestion for you, another possibility here. You can take the child, Grogu, to Tython, where he'll find the ruins of an ancient Jedi temple that has a strong connection to the Force. He could place Grogu on a seeing stone at the top of the mountain. Then Grogu may choose his path. If he reaches out to the Force, there's a chance a Jedi may sense his presence and come searching for him. Then again, there aren't many Jedi left, which she says with some real deep sadness. So
Tear.
Which is ironic considering the fact she didn't want to join the Jedi Council and kind of walked her own path. So maybe some retrospect there and thinking about how the Jedi was essential to the universe or to the galaxy. So who do you guys think is the Jedi that they are that might be answering the call? Will it be a Jedi? Will it be a Sith Lord? Who would answer this call? What do we think they're setting up? And remember, this is the 5th episode. We only have 3 episodes left in this season. So who do you think might answer this call here?
Michael mentioned Ezra Bridger, and never occurred to me. I loved it.
I mean, Ezra Bridger's out there. We've got Ahsoka. We've got Bo-Katan. If Thrawn is back enough to be somebody's master, Ezra's somewhere around, possibly. Or he's going to be drawn in. John, I think you're also right. Maybe it's not going to be a Jedi. Maybe it's going to be someone darker. I did a little bit of searching. Tython is from, in the Legends category of Star Wars, Tython is like the origin of the Jedi. I mean, that temple is like the OG Jedi temple. So they may be building, as they often do, taking something like Thrawn from the Legends category and moving it in. Tython did get mentioned. I looked it up, I believe in the Doc Afra comic, which is in modern continuity. So it's been mentioned, but it's definitely like hotbed of Force activity. To your point about 3 episodes, Mandalorian has weird pace, not weird pacing. Mandalorian has its own pacing. And I think a lot of who we might see or what's going to happen, whether Ahsoka's going to come back, whether we're going to see Bo-Katan again, whether Ezra's going to show up, is going to be contingent on what happens in the next episode.
Yeah. They
could spend the entire episode on their way to Tython and just get there at the very end, and the last 2 episodes of the season might be a big 2-parter like season 1, and it'll be dealing in the Jedi Temple. Yeah. They could also just get to the Jedi Temple at the beginning, and in the first 10 minutes he can put him on the Seeing Stone, and shit could go down. Like, there's a lot in play. Boba Fett's in play from the very beginning. We think it's Boba Fett. Johnny is at a 95%. But Boba Fett's in play, so that's just a piece of the thread out there. Moff Gideon currently is tracking Mando, so he's on his way with that army of droids or armor or whatever that is. Yeah. He's got the Darksaber that Bo-Katan is trying to find with her team of Mandalorians. Ahsoka has now left them to go wherever, but I don't think we've seen the last of her. And they're going to a Jedi temple to put him on a Seeing Stone and try and get other Jedi to come around. And aside from Luke Skywalker, who I don't think we're going to... I don't think is going to get involved in this adventure. Ezra's kind of the next likely suspect.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Laura? Do you like the idea of Ezra? Or is there another Jedi in your mind, or maybe a Sith Lord in your mind?
No, I don't have any Sith Lords in my mind. Ezra hadn't occurred to me until Michael just mentioned it, and I love that idea. I don't think Luke Skywalker is in play. I would be really surprised to see him. I don't know if... I kind of hope that that's not the case. But I think that Ezra's a likely candidate. And, I'm going to backtrack on what I said about Ahsoka not coming back, because I'm remembering in an interview that Giancarlo Esposito did earlier this year, where he talked about how he's going to be having a lightsaber battle at some point during this season, which means we're going to see we have to have another lightsaber brought back into the series at some point. The most likely candidate there would be Ahsoka. And I forgot also that the Razor Crest is being tracked by Moff Gideon. Right. So he's probably going to end up back on Corvus, I think is the name of the planet, and then be questioning Ahsoka, and maybe that's where this lightsaber battle goes down.
Yeah.
So that's...
I like that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
I don't know.
How many pieces, with all the pieces that are in play, it's going to be... Look, they did a great job. Like, I didn't think they would do it. Last season, you got to chapter 7, and it was like, okay, I got to go back. I'm going to go get every character from every episode in like a nice little montage and line them all up. So the capability they have to pick up all the threads and bring them all home to stick the landing, they proved it once. So I think we're definitely going to see it again. Kind of to the bigger question, how many of these threads are for the season 2 finale? How many of these are threads that are going to get picked up in season 3? And how many of these are threads that are being built in because they are planning spin-off City, because people are loving this version of Star Wars better than a lot of things that people have been dealing with in a while?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a few episodes ago, I think when Laura and I were doing the Jedi Way, I mentioned how there's no way they're presenting all these characters and not having them all come into play here in the season finale, in my opinion, in some way. And you might be right, Mike. It might be a 2-parter. It might be a 2-parter, which would be exciting to see overall. In fact, I imagine it will be, which would make sense. Kind of a pseudo movie, a 90-minute movie or a longer movie, essentially, when you put the 2 parts together. That would be exciting to see. Also, the overall idea, and listen, we can't ignore the real world stuff, which is what happened a few weeks ago when Disney announced that they were going to spend more time focusing on their streaming services, spend more, reconstruct their company to focus more on streaming services. You can already tell from this season how much money they've spent. This episode alone will show you how much more money they spent to make this thing look cinematic as hell, theatrical as hell. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is where they now see their path or the way to go, rather than going into movies. Because remember, they said they're going to take a step back from the movies. There's been a lot of drama with Kathleen Kennedy, with Benioff and Weiss, with Rian Johnson, all of that stuff. But people are loving Mandalorian. So if the Kenobi series comes out and is good, and they start focusing on a spin-off series with Ahsoka Tano, this may be the way that they see the future being, streaming services rather than creating a new filmed trilogy. So to me, that excites me, because this is quality Star Wars.
I'll do you one better than that. I agree with everything you said, but I'll do you one better, which is not just sticking to the streaming and doing that, which I think they really will invest a lot, and they're seeing the success of that with Star Wars, but giving this team, the Mandalorian creative team, the reins to take these, like it's not, as Marvel is hopefully going to prove with WandaVision and Loki and everything else, you can bounce back and forth. Like you can go back and forth, and there's no reason that you can't take some of these threads. I mean, it's a little premature to say this, and I think these things will happen. But like, if we were a little bit further along, I would love to see Ahsoka and Sabine and their search for Ezra spin off into a feature that I would go see in theaters while other stuff is happening on TV. Like, I think that this is the team to me, and I've said this, you know, not that this is an original thought. Everyone says this, but the Clone Wars team, the Clone Wars and Rebels animated team, are the ones that get Star Wars. And now Favreau and the entire Bryce Dallas Howard, Taika Waititi, all of that, like the entire Deborah Chow, like this is the team that gets Star Wars. Just let them do Star Wars.
Yeah, Laura, what's your feeling?
This is it.
Yeah. This is the team. Do you feel like this is the way with them?
This is the way, indeed. No, I think that they have assembled a crack team over at The Mandalorian. I'm really excited for Deborah Chow being able to take on her own series now with the Kenobi show. Fingers crossed that we get that hopefully sometime soon. I think they're supposed to start filming in the spring. But yeah, I think when it comes to Dave Filoni, you know, I sort of wonder like what exactly are his ambitions when it comes to you know, this live action stuff.
Great point.
I almost wonder if like his ambition was this, like, get this animated character that he created and nurtured and loved and let her go and fly free, and let's bring her into whatever we can, because I just want to see Ahsoka all the time. But one thing's for sure, we definitely haven't seen the last of her. We know we're going to see more of Rosario Dawson at some point, whether that be spinoff, whether that be more episodes of The Mandalorian. But yeah, I'm excited. This was thrilling.
Speaking of fly free, I didn't want this review to go by without the mention of, did everybody see Morai? Did we see the owl?
You know, I saw people pointing that out. I watched the episode twice and didn't catch it. I don't know if that's necessarily her.
I was the worst parody. I was the worst parody of that Leonardo DiCaprio meme. Sitting here drinking my coffee and just went, ow! Owl. Yeah. Morai is definitely there, which along with the loft cat, it's just, you know, again, it's one of those things that like the details that people in animation bring to something. And for those that don't know, Ahsoka Tano, from about midpoint of Clone Wars on, due to a whole force wielding episode with some weird characters that were like the father, the son, and the daughter, or the father, the father, the son, and the daughter of the Force. There is this owl named Morai. It's a convor technically, but it's a Star Wars owl that follows Ahsoka around. And anytime you see Ahsoka from that point forward, Morai is there. It's the way that you knew in Rebels that Ahsoka probably wasn't fully gone, because Morai was there. We see Morai at the end of Clone Wars in season 7, and now this owl does show up briefly in the shadows. You do see this owl Morai in Clone Wars. In this episode of Mandalorian, and it's those little details, it's those little things that are just so lovingly and carefully dropped in that I think kind of underscores what I was saying, which is this is the team that is going to take Star Wars and keep going with it.
One last part of this review. Is there anything you guys didn't like? I'd like to go or had some issue with. I'll go with one thing. How come Mando didn't reveal to Ahsoka what they were using Grogu's blood for? Did you find that to be weird that he didn't mention it to Ahsoka? But is there anything else that stood out for you guys that you maybe didn't like or had some questions about?
I want more. Give me another half hour.
Exactly. I am happy that this was like one of the longer episodes that they've done this season. If they were going to do it in any of them, I'm like, give me this. That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Honestly, there was so little that I didn't like. I liked so much. Kind of to your point, you know, we know how important it is that they were using Baby Yoda or Grogu for his midi-chlorians and what that means. But keep in mind, Mando, who barely knows what a Jedi is, all he knows is they were using. He doesn't know that much more than he already knew. We know more because we have a lot of context, but to him, he says the Empire's hunting him, and I think that's the essential information. It would have been kind of weird for him to give all these other details, so that didn't bother me. Although I think that's a valid a point to bring up, but that's why that didn't bother me. You know, I'm trying to think, but like honestly, this was just such like a lovely. Like all the best episodes of Mandalorian, there's a ton of context to dive into, but also as just he showed up. There was 2 badass fighters. They took on this shitty town. They beat the bad guys. They freed the good guys. And like I said, the emotional core between when Mando goes back to the Razor Crest, and little baby Yoda, little Grogu is sleeping in his hammock, and he's getting him ready because he thinks this is it. Ahsoka's going to make good on her deal. Dude, it's emotional. It's beautiful. It really just underscores that these two, kind of like Dolores said, like these two main characters, like this relationship between them is the key. Like Mando's relationship to Grogu is going to be the thing, like kind of Johnny, to your point, whether Moff Gideon gets Grogu, whether Thrawn shows up and gets Grogu, whether some Sith Lord tries to use him, you are right. We've seen Grogu try and choke force Cara Dune. We've seen that there is the potential. Ahsoka's told us he could go bad. And despite the Jedi Order's incorrect assumption that attachments can lead to the dark side, I think we're pretty well proven that the Jedi Council was wrong, and that Grogu's attachment to Mando is going to be the thing that saves him.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is fascinating to consider and look at, because remember, Qui-Gon Jinn get killed too early before he was able to kind of school Anakin. And remember, don't forget, Dave Filoni had that like 8.5-minute monologue about how important that was in assessing Anakin Skywalker overall as a character. Well, in this, it feels like Din Djarin is not going to be killed off, and he's going to, because Ahsoka even says, it's like, you should train him, you should be in, like, all of this stuff. So maybe having Din Djarin being a part of him is the thing that keeps him from turning to the dark side. And if not, then I look forward to Grogu the Sith Lord at some point down the road versus Mandalorian, which should be awesome in my opinion.
And don't forget, I mean, that Darksaber originally is it's the one Mandalorian Jedi who crafted the Darksaber. And if Mando raised Grogu and trained him in the ways of the Mandalorians and gave him some Beskar armor, and the dude was a Force wielder, and he's a Yoda.
There's some
shit, guys. My nerd brain just melted. I can't say anything else for the day. I have nothing else to give.
I think that's a good point for us to wrap up our review. Robert Rodriguez, you got a hell of an episode to follow, my man. I hope your episode is just as good next week. He is going to direct this thing, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got. Thank you all so much for watching and listening to this review of The Mandalorian, The Jedi, Chapter 13 here on the Geek Buddies. Thank you to Laura Kelly. Thank you to Michael Vogel. Laura, where can they find you? And any final words, please?
Final words. This series has just given me so many things that I never thought that I would ever get to see in live action, and Ahsoka Tano was top of the list. So this has been fully rewarding for me as a canon junkie, as an Ahsoka Tano fan, as a Star Wars Rebels fan, to get all the Easter eggs we got in this episode. So I am just ecstatic, and that's I'll just leave it at that. But you can find me on Twitter. I'm at @shutup_Laura. The show that I host with my friend Alice, where we drink wine and talk about Star Wars, is Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour. You can find that any place you can find podcasts. And then I co-host The Jedi Way with John, and that show comes out every other week, where we talk about Star Wars.
Absolutely, yeah. Looking forward to ours this week. Michael, where can they find you? Any final words, my man? You
can find me on the top of Big Bear Mountain. That's where I currently am. Bring gloves. It's cold. Yep, but other than that, you can find me at MKToon on Twitter and Instagram. And obviously, I co-host the Geek Buddies with John Rocha and Shannon McClung when he is back. And other than that, hey, I'm just around, man. I'm like the Force. I'm everywhere and nowhere.
That's right. He's connected to all living things. You guys can find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. Thank you so much again for watching or listening to this. Please hit a like on this. Also subscribe to the channel and leave a comment down below. The more likes and comments you leave, it elevates the visibility of the show. And if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's @the_geek_buddies. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies. So do all of that and share it and tell people about it. Mikey?
I was going to say, definitely leave comments below. The comments on the past Mandalorian reviews have been really great. You guys have schooled us on some things. You guys have brought up some really good points, and it's been a blast. So definitely leave a comment below. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you agree with. Tell us what you disagree with. Like, what do you think these next 3 episodes are going to be? Tell us about it. We're really excited to chat with you. Hit us up on Twitter. Dive into those conversations the same. Been a lot of fun Star Wars chats in the past couple weeks on our on Twitter. So definitely hit us up.
Yep, we got over 110 comments on the last review, so thank you so much. Keep sending them in. Keep getting us your thoughts. We love reading them. And a big thank you to Laura Kelly, who's been an incredible guest over the last.
Woo!
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks for having me, guys.
course. And people have loved you on the show, so it's been great stuff. All right, that's it from us. You all take care of yourselves and come back and join us for another episode, another review episode here of The Mandalorian on the
Geek
Buddies.
Hey!